Pericles had ordered everyone into the city, and they ended up then getting sick from a plague. They lost about a third of their population, and you end up with them finally losing to Sparta, and Sparta tears down the walls and replaces the democracy with a junta, 30 people, and they try to kill all the outstanding Democrats in the town. People are pissed off about a lot of things, because by the time this happens, they now have a democracy back again, but it's a wounded, mutilated population of people, and they're upset. And Socrates is related to another person through his relationships who was considered at the time a great general, but at the same time ended up, let's see if I could find it, Alcibiades. Does anybody see Alcibiades? No, well, let's just do it this way. So Alcibiades was one of his students, or young men that frequently engaged in dialogues with him, right? So this seems pretty clear, and his connection with him, who turns out to be a traitor and joins Sparta, makes Socrates look pretty guilty. So there's actually lots of reasons why he might have been put on trial. He pissed everybody off. He asked questions that nobody really felt very comfortable with. It seemed like it encouraged the young people to disagree with their elders. And they really needed the young people because they were at war. Plus his connection with one who was more of a monarchist or an aristocrat than a democrat. So could have been lots of different reasons why Socrates ends up on trial. No one really knows for sure what happened. And when we get back to Plato and Plato's bias here, we think that there's an early period where Plato is writing dialogues where Socrates is really that way. So Plato is really describing the kind of dialogues that Socrates is engaged in. And you could tell, because there is no answer at the end of the dialogue. You end up feeling like, like Euthyphro, frustrated, walks off, and no answer. Socrates doesn't give you the answer. That's kind of famous, he doesn't know anything. At least he knows he doesn't know anything. That's the only thing he knows for sure. Right? And so in those dialogues, you end up feeling like that sounds like Socrates. Then we get to the middle period, where Plato suddenly starts having a Socrates who knows all the answers. You think, wait a minute, that's totally wrong. This is the same guy that didn't know anything, and now he's basically asking, what's this? Da, 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 da. I don't know, Socrates. Well, it's got to be this, right? Wow, that's really amazing, Socrates. Tell me more, Socrates. Okay, and this, and this. Wow, Socrates, I'm so impressed. You know everything. You've gone from dialogues that are really thought-provoking and irritating to a whole set of dialogues where basically Plato seems to be telling you his conclusions about the questions that Socrates had been asking. And so, wow, when did this switch happen, right? When exactly did this happen? Kind of interesting, though, the third period is probably when he already has Aristotle as a student. Aristotle was as much a pain in the neck as Socrates was, because he was a book nerd, really read a lot. He also invents logic, botany, zoology, all the ologies. But he doesn't invent sociology. And by the way, that's a latecomer. That's Auguste Comte, a Frenchman. And socio is Latin, and ology is Greek. You're not supposed to invent a new word and mix language roots in order to do it. For Aristotle, sociology is politics. Polis, the city, so what is concerning the city, right? So the third period seems to have been influenced by Aristotle, who critiques a lot of what the middle period gives us, and you end up then with a dialogue like with Parmenides. Remember, Parmenides was one of the pre-Socratics and thought that there was no actual change, it was an illusion. And the problem is you have to believe in two unchanging ideas, Parmenides, right? So let's think, what does Plato actually do when he invents ideas? He invents ideas. Well, the Greeks had the word idea before. It's the same word, idea, spelled almost the same. But what did it mean for the Greeks? Apparently, prior to Plato, the concept of an idea was like, I have an idea of you sitting there. I have a perception, really, of you sitting there, and you sitting there, and you sitting there. So my idea is what I'm perceiving. But remember that we've gone from poetic oral society to a prose society, and along with that is Eric Havelock. And by the way, Eric Havelock wasn't the only one who, in his preface to Plato, talks about this as an issue. He was a member of the Toronto School, Toronto, Canada, university there. And one of his colleagues was Marshall McLuhan. If you've heard of him, Marshall McLuhan, his most famous line is, "The media is the message." Right? So I'm teaching you to read the Apology. Whether you agree with me on what the Apology means or says or whatever, the real thing is you're learning to read. Right? When you're debating, you're getting all these things that you're learning about to argue with other people. But the real thing you're learning is learning both sides of an issue, or multiple sides of an issue. Because that's really one of the main goals of the education, is for you to be aware of all of the sides, etc. Right? All the good and bad of both sides. Right? We're not supposed to say, this is the right side. We're not supposed to say that, because we're supposed to say, you should respect both sides. Does that make sense? Which is actually a conclusion, which, remember, that's also very anomic, very scary. Which side is right? Which set of beliefs is right? Well, with our particular postmodern view of education, you're supposed to learn all of the views, the strengths and weaknesses of all of them, which of course leads people to feel like, well, which one is right? I frustrate the heck out of friends of mine, sitting around the table, which do you believe? And I say, well, I believe these people think this, and these people think this. Well, but what do you think? Well, I think these people believe this, and these people believe this. But what do you think? I think these people believe this. they get frustrated with me because, well, I'm sociological, you know. You know, the sociologist goes out and asks Americans, do you believe in God? Yes, no, this is what I think, et cetera, et cetera. What do you believe in? You know, and they go out all over, ask people all over the place. Other questions like, are you middle class? Turns out that everybody in the United States thinks they're middle class. Regardless of how much you make. Yeah, oh yeah, of course, I'm middle class. We're all middle class. Maybe not. Maybe that's been updated recently. I don't know. You know, it changes, of course. But the problem with the sociologists then is they come back and they've got all this data, and you say, so what do you conclude? Does God exist? Huh? That's not what they were studying. They're studying all these different things. Yes, these people believe this. These people believe this. And it's changed. You know, we have less people that believe this, more people that believe this. You know, and it turns out now Congress doesn't really represent most people, most Americans, because most of the congressmen believe things that most people, you know, the number of people no longer believe. You read that just the other day, maybe, in the paper. Maybe not. Okay. So Alcibiades, pretty interesting character. And there's lives of these different people as well. How am I doing? Has this been entertaining? So let me get back to Plato. I'll just go this way. Something about Plato. The name Plato is a nickname and is derived from the same word that we use for plate. You know, when you put your food on a plate, or a plateau, which is kind of a broad geographical, you know, marker of some sort. So why is he called Plato? Apparently he had broad shoulders and was a great wrestler. There's other possibilities, but that seems to be, at least in my opinion, the most likely one from what I've read. So he was broad. But his given name, apparently, and not many people know this, because everybody seems to just, Plato. But if you read the sources, you discover that his given name was Aristocles. Aristocles. Ever heard of it? Oh, yes, Aristocles. So Aristoi means the best. And so aristocracy, krasi is power, right? Aristoi, the best of society, have the power, right? The nobles, they're the ones that rule, right? A democracy, the deme, the people, have the power, right? So that's a different example of that. But Aristocles means the glory of the best. Remember, Heracles is the glory of Hera, so Aristocles is the glory of the best. And what's very interesting is his invention of ideas and idealism honors the best. Because what Socrates has been teaching as a goal of life is ethics, instead of the science of the pre-Socratics that are out there looking for the arche, the building block of everything: water, air, the infinite, fire, earth, air, fire, water, etc. Right? Socrates is not that interested in that. The most important thing for him is humanity and living a good life. Right? How to be happy? What makes you happy? Is wealth important? Does it make you happy? A lot of wealthy people are not very happy. On the other hand, I think a lot of poor people are not very happy. Pretty clear. But you could be absolutely broke and still perfectly fine. We'll have a school of thought called the cynics that are that way. Jesus basically taught, that, wealth is not, what makes you a good person, right? Etc. I remember the rich man, how I obtain the eternal life. Wow, sell everything you have and give the money to the poor and come follow me. Oh crap, I'm not doing that. See ya. Right? And off he goes, right? As far as I know. Actually, it never says what he ends up doing. He does go away at that point. It's sad, because he doesn't want to do that. By the way, I suspect that most of you in your email, in response to today's quiz question, will do the same. You'll argue. Well, why would I do that? I worked hard for what I've got. Why would I give it up? And then, what am I going to be doing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I joke about, fish and chips, because anybody get the joke? Why fish and chips? Okay, sorry. Miracle loaves and fishes. No, okay. Sorry. I believe in Jesus, just, in case you worry, no problem. However, I'm absolutely convinced that Jesus would have had a great sense of humor. I mean, for example, right? Let's pick one of Jesus's jokes as an example, right? Anybody know any of Jesus's jokes?
I didn't know he had more than one.
So let's see. I think it was the Roman that addresses the one person and says, or he slaps him, right? And he slaps him with the left hand. Turn the other cheek, right? And here's the thing. What is the Roman doing, or he slaps somebody with the left hand? You're going to really hurt someone, you hit them with the right hand usually. With the left hand, it's an insult. And Jesus says, turn the other cheek, right? Now that's often interpreted